the next topic we have here is about phone blocks, which is essentially a build-your-own phone type of prototype that's in the works. Essentially, the idea behind this, I'll be video playing as I'm talking, but essentially the concept behind this is that there'll be like different blocks that function for like different aspects for like the phone. So you might have like a different screen, like might have like for bigger memory, for like a new camera, things like that. And they all kind of like act like Lego blocks in a way, like attaching to like this kind of this pin board, more or less. And basically, like the funny thing about this phone, like that immediately jumps to me, is that it's not necessarily built for profit. It's built for the consumers in mind, which makes me wonder whether or not this can actually be like a reality. Now, there's like a lot of support for it through crowdsourcing and everything, but I guess the real question is, do you think this could become a reality?
Okay, I'm going to go a little bit level deeper than what you just did. I'm going to talk significantly about the tech for a minute, okay? So the idea is that this phone build is open source, meaning that anyone could technically build a component for it if they wanted to, okay? So basically what this is, it's a new type of phone making with the collaborative economy idea in mind, okay? Very deep marketing concept. Not going to go into that specifically, but basically what it means is that the people get to decide what happens with it. So, in other words, yes, this is a very good thing. Yes, there is a definite profit that could be made off of it if you're smart enough to know what's coming for the future. This isn't an idea for today, unfortunately. I would love to see this thing come into existence. It's not going to happen today. 5, 10, 20 years down the line from now, definitely. Unfortunately, the problem is most people see phones as a whole unit, okay? Which, if you look at this piece, you figure out that a phone is not necessarily a whole unit. You have different parts to the phone that make it work. What this phone does, though, is it puts it more in terms of how you build a personal computer. It's kind of the same idea, where you buy the motherboard, which would be the pegboard at this point, and you plug everything into it that you want to put into it. It's basically like building a personal computer, but made out of your phone, with components that major manufacturers are already making. It's trying to get manufacturers to conform to this sort of form factor that I think will be the problem more than anything else.
That's going to be it's going to be like the big problem, because as I was saying, it's more of like a question of like profitability, and like this, it is obviously more profitable for companies like if people are buying like the whole phones as opposed to getting like the different parts and everything.
It's more profitable for one company.
For one company,
if people buy the whole phone. Let's make that very clear.
Yes.
It's not profitable for the people who make. It ends up being profitable for the people who make the Bluetooth component of it, for instance, because they get to sell a whole bunch of Bluetooth components. But what if the next go around with that phone, Apple, Motorola, Samsung, decide to change manufacturers for that, and that was your only business? That company's DOA. With this one, it would allow basically capitalist ideas to bubble to the surface. That's basically what this is. It's kind of like the ultimate capitalist phone, if you will, because you get to buy the best components for it. You get to put it together the way that you want to personally.
Well, you just said it, that it's more consumer driven than anything. A person who really would want this phone would customize it, obviously, to their liking, which in turn would only show what type of consumer they would be as far as who they would buy, with having a phone,
With this phone, it would be cheaper for the manufacturers in the long run and more profitable if they figured out how to make this thing work.
Yeah.
It's the marketing aspect behind it, and like it's the idea of this is essentially trying to make itself the universal phone, period. And like all the other companies to conform to this.
I don't think that's not the way that I see it. It's not that this is trying to be the universal phone. It's that
sounds like the universal phone.
To answer the question of who provides the best component pieces. Because the phone doesn't mean anything, because it's the sum of the parts.
The reason why I'm calling it kind of like the universal phone is because like you still have to get like that core part, which is the pin board. Which, I mean, there is already kind of like a branding behind this. It's called phone blocks. So you're essentially buying phone blocks, but all the other companies have to, put in like their own blocks in order to make it work.
I'm sure there'll be a licensing fee and that sort of thing.
That's the licensing, exactly. And like, I'm just kind of curious if like other companies are willing, yes, to all kind of conform to this one thing from someone not like one definitive company. You know what I mean?
When they said it was going to be open source. That means that it's going to be open source. Yeah. Open source means that anybody can develop for it. That's the best part. Now if there's some sort of secondary thing that goes along with that or something else, I don't know. But as it's stated here, basically it gives the advantage to people who want to innovate. That's the way that I see it, at least. Like through this collaborative economy, through that sort of thing. If you want to be out in front, you should be going this way. If I had about an extra $10 million to invest right now, it'd go right here.
Depending on what company is going to sell more, it really depends on the people buying the phone.
Exactly.
And the quality of the product.
Oh, yeah.
The quality of the product is the number one thing.
This is the first time that someone's ever put, what you wanted, your personal interest, in a product as opposed to giving you something already. That's so totally fine.
It's usually the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
That's the way it breaks down.
They wouldn't make a huge, because obviously they'd make a huge profit off it because you're buying the what would be the block for this phone.
It would be significantly cheaper than manufacturing an entire phone.
Yeah. Oh,
because you're only building component pieces at this point.
And that gets everybody playing ball a little bit because it's like if one company jumps on,
everybody else is
right, yeah.
You
gotta get like enough support, not only from like the potential consumers for this, but the companies, especially. You have to get them on board, like to realize that there can be like a profit made, but you have to drastically change your model as far as how you market yourself, more or less. You're not selling the new iPhone. You're selling a new camera that is going to fit with this device that is going to make you gonna have like a better camera or whatever.
Did anybody else think of when they were showing the blocks going in there? Did anybody else think you didn't? But did anybody else think of like the Deus Ex inventory?
Yes,
because that's exactly what I thought of.
It's precisely that.
I need 5 power packs.
The thing that I thought of with this is think about being able to go anywhere in the world and
buy a new part.
Dude, you need a new part.
Now that right there, could you imagine the market at that point? To know that I could be out in the middle of Nepal, in the middle of nowhere, and I could get me a new battery module if I needed it.
Yeah.
Or if you went overseas and you needed a new power thing.
Yeah.
Like a new power thing. Because the power cords aren't the same.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, we know that's the case.
Oh, definitely.
Or if you had to make a big presentation overseas and they have a different type, let's say it's not HDMI, let's say it's something else weird, and you had a different output that you could plug.
Sockets, yeah.
I mean,
even
that
more
right there,
even
memory.
More, even more memory.
Or what if you had to have a different block to access the mobile network wherever you are?
Yeah, that's another part of it too. Yeah,
convenience in being able to actually say, well, hey, I need something different for my phone. That's like.
Well, unfortunately, when you're dealing with big ideas like this, consumer convenience is the last thing on the list.
Obviously.
Right.
Potential profitability, though, outweighs the consumer interest.
True. This phone...
If you're smart enough to realize it.
If you're smart enough, but the thing is, this concept, this video, really pushes the idea that, consumer interest should be forefront. And you know what? It should be. But unfortunately, in this country, that's not how it works. Exactly.
This is like what you would want your car to be able to do. Be able to instantly change something that you... Dude, this is perfect.
They've been talking about that. That's been around for a long time, and they've been talking about it for a while, but it's one of those things that the automakers are too stupid to figure out that it would make them significantly more money in the long run because people would buy more.
Yeah.
The automobile industry, in particular, is very stringent, their old ways. That's going to be one of those industries that is going to be the least likely to make any sort of major changes in the way they do things.
It would be the one, okay, in theory, Dave,
Yeah.
If you could buy a $5,000 car frame,
Yeah.
okay, and then for an extra $6,000 have a sedan frame, as in like shell, let's say shell, sedan shell, and then for an extra $12,000 have an SUV shell, how likely are you to buy both shells than you are for just the frame and one shell? You know, what if you need the pickup truck shell, but all the components that go with it, you just attach the shell to the thing, and you have a completely different vehicle.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, people usually get whatever vehicle for whatever fits like their lifestyle in that sense, anyway. So I mean, I'm not likely to switch from like my like 2-door like hatchback right now to like a pickup truck.
Not necessarily. I would be willing to, because what if I only need my 2-door sedan to get to work and back?
Right.
But next weekend I know that I'm going to have to haul a piece of furniture.
And see, okay.
It's the same theory. It's the same principle.
And see, like with that particular type of phone, it's just that it leaves the option for you to do what
You want to with it.
Yeah, that's I think that's like the key selling point for what they're trying to do with this, which obviously would make them a ton of money if, you know, especially if they've got complete 100% go from every company on the face of the planet that wanted to invest in this idea.
You just need one big one.
Yeah, you need one
big
huge company to invest in it, and
somebody they'll come.
Yeah.
They'll come. If they could do this, I would probably sign on for a Windows phone. And I say that right here today.
Yeah.
This is also another thing too, like that makes you like worried on whether or not like a lot of like companies are going to back this, is because like a lot of companies either already have like their contingency plan several years down the line as far as like what they're going to do in the smartphone like market and everything. Like, you know, like would they just kind of just dump all that aside so as to change everything, go into this blocks method?
Companies have what they're going to do on down the line. Honestly, at this point, if you know anything about the exponential rate that tech growth usually goes in, is that you can't plan any more than 2 years out in advance, regardless of what you believe. Okay? Because there's new things being created all the time.
And who's to say that a company hasn't necessarily thought of this idea already?
Right.
That these guys weren't the first. These guys were probably the first guys.
Well, there are no new original ideas.
Yes, true.
You know,
true.
This show happens to be the first one that we've seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
As far as them putting this idea out, who's to say that, you know, another company was like, well, damn, you know, like
we had that idea.
Yeah, we had this idea, and somebody beat us to the punch already.
But they still decided to sign on anyway.
Yeah,
or whatever.
It's being able to say that you thought of this first,
right?
Than anything, because it's like, as long as you thought of it first, it's like people are gonna
always associate it with
you. Yeah, you associate your brand with that idea.
Right. It all comes down to whoever, like wherever it first came from.
Yeah,
wherever it first came from, and like if it's like a certain, like in this case, it's David Hackins, I guess, who's like the guy who's like kind of creating a concept for this. Like, he's not associated with any particular company, so that's kind of the ideal spot that he wants to be in, just so like it's not like this company now owns the rights for this phone blocks. Like, you don't want this sort of idea to be owned by one particular company.
Because at that point, you just have a regular old phone again.
Exactly.
Yeah, same problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is the first, like, legitimate idea for a DIY phone. You know, it's a do-it-yourself phone, I mean, literally. And that's something that, in this day and age,
you kind of have to have.
Yeah, it's perfect.
You're right. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
This is the sort of idea that I can see maybe 5 years down the line, more likely 10 years down the line. And considering the fact that like we're in an age now, like where there are like vending machines now for everything. Can you imagine there are like vending machines for like, you know, get like new phone blocks for this and that, like if you're on the train or whatever, you're traveling. Oh, like, you know, I need more memory for my long flight back home or whatever. You know, right there.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I
can fall in line with how society does things.
Any podunk gas station in the middle of nowhere. You know, it's not necessarily on the train. It's not urban areas when you know that it's a success.
Yeah.
It's the truck stop in the middle of Kansas when you know it's a success.
Where you are.
Yeah.
Where you are.
But anybody at that point, you know, that's when you know that it's a success. You can pick that. You know, it's that simple.
I feel like if you keep the consumer in mind more, there's no way no one would buy this. I would love to meet somebody who wouldn't say that this is a good idea.
It already has like a lot of support. So I mean, like, it's just a matter of like, can we see this actually put into action?
Well, on October, but
Ends October 29th.
29th, October 29th. Like, they don't state that anywhere. So, hire me for your marketing campaign, Phone Blocks. I need this job. Like, it should be like October 29th all over the place. But we just found it in some little byline down here. Like, anyway, October 29th, support Phone Blocks.
Yep. Let's make it happen. The future is now.
The future is forsaken.
The future
is forsaken. The future is forsaken.
The future
is forsaken. The future is forsaken. The future is
The
forsaken.
future is about blocking.
Anybody else remember that terrible
Yes.
Nintendo 64?
Which is why I kept trying to interrupt you.